lights up.
Good.
Actually, probably
All
better.
right.
It's just your headlights at night without street lights so that you can see.
We're good. Okay. All right, thank you for everyone being here tonight. Tonight is the Council Planning and Parks Committee meeting for Tuesday, October 21st, 2025. Thank you for being here. And Ms. Rivito, would you please do roll call?
Chair Galani,
Here?
Councilmember Roblesky. Here. Councilmember Trottier. Councilmember McCutcheon. Here. Councilmember Davo.
Here,
Councilmember Rambo. Councilmember Crayons.
Here.
Councilmember Ottenberg. And we have a quorum.
And Councilmember Rambo and Councilmember Rotberg both contact me and they're in. So it should be here within minutes. With that being said, do we have any public input? Well, I don't see anybody here.
If anyone online would like to speak, please use the raise hand feature and we'll promote you to a panelist. We are good to go.
All right, that being said, it takes us to our first matter, which I hear coming down the stairs.
Mr. Chair, if I may, we have the minutes, if you don't mind.
Oh, that's a good call. I'll take a motion now for the approval of the minutes from the meeting on September 16th.
so moved.
Councilmember Dodwell, do we have a second? Councilmember Grant? Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? All right.
Thank you.
Minutes are, sorry about that, I skipped right over it. That'll take us into the first item under action items, which under planning and parks, ready for consideration is the department's operating capital budget for planning and parks for fiscal year 2026, and we've got city administrator Tom Lee.
Yes, and we are gonna get some copies down here too, but really I want to call you to your attention. Typically, what's being proposed tonight is pretty drastic cuts in what we've typically provided over the last couple of years. We have copies. I have two available here that go through the cuts for the entire budget of what was like what we needed to maintain. We're getting more down. That said, to give a quick overview, when we were doing our revenue analysis for fiscal year 2026, we had indicated two pretty major drivers of really stagnant revenues. We're expecting about $59,500 increase and net increase to our overall general operating revenue. And we're seeing a $160,000 increase from the police service contract alone. That said, other items are also increasing simultaneously, contractor rates, et cetera, and also just generally, things for insurance, general liability. The day-to-day operations postage actually just went up in July. That said, we identified really two major drivers of this revenue stagnation. One, spending habits have somewhat flattened over the last couple of months, a couple of years. In 2022, we saw a spike. In 23, it carried over, where that adjustment for inflation, we were obviously seeing that when getting vendors set up as well. We were having to pay a little extra, but at the same time, we were seeing those costs being spread out to the whole county, which then was producing more revenue through the pool tax. That said, since 2024, we actually saw that somewhat stay. It's where we want it to be. It's not below projections, but it's just hitting where we had projected it to be. So really, for the operating, that is one of the primary drivers. Makes up right around $6 million of the $12,925,000 that we have. So that said, if spending stays relatively stagnant, then overall our budget and our revenue does the same. It copies those ways. And same goes for our public safety sales tax as well. That goes along with spending habits, and we're actually projecting that to be similar. And we don't expect a decrease, but we did not want to increase it any further because we've seen it just return exactly what we expected this year. And really, we haven't seen any indications that's going to change. A couple positive things I'll add before kind of jumping into it is that we do have developments that are currently being constructed. And once those individuals have made it and built out their living quarters, we should see approximately 300 new households and units in Wildwood, which will in turn produce more revenue within our half-cent capital improvement sales tax fund. If those residents are moving from outside the county into the county and then shopping, then that's going to also help increase. So I do think overall in the next couple of years, we should see it start creeping back up. But as of right now, it's staying relatively stagnant, meaning we have to keep up with all of our operating expenses that we have day to day that are coming in for the next year, while also accounting for, really relatively flat revenue sources. So two other things to point out with revenue. One, we have two different sources that have decreased in approximately about, at its height, we've lost about $200,000 annually from these two sources. One being the cable franchise fee and the other being the telephone utility tax. So I'll explain both of those in a little bit more detail. So the telephone utility tax, that is something that is charged. It's a gross receipts tax. We charge 5% for folks that have a landline at their homes, or if they have a cellular plan that actually charges for the minutes. If it's based off a data package, we see that that portion of the bill doesn't get taxed. The other side of it is we're seeing more and more folks go from having, a landline service at their home to not having that service. So that said, we've seen that revenue source by itself over the last 5 years decrease at its height of about $400,000 a year. And we're seeing it come in around like $220,000 for the next fiscal year. So that is obviously, on top of only growing by 59,005, on top of having to offset a police expenditure increase as well. That's practically losing $200,000 a year is how I kind of look at it. The other side of it is the cable franchise fee, which this one wasn't necessarily our fault or anything along those lines. It was more so the state legislature. Back in 2021, the state legislature passed a bill that took the 5% gross receipts we could charge onto cable and that utility service, and they slowly cranked it down over the years past. So in 2023, it started, and we did see a notable decrease, and we've seen that decrease by 0.25% each year over a 5-year period, which is supposed to end in 2027. We've seen that decrease year over year, and now it's a similar situation where at its height, we were seeing approximately a little less than $400,000 a year. That said, now we're seeing that come in more at the 220 range. And I can get the exact numbers are in there, but just wanted to give some numbers for reference. But really, it's almost cut that revenue source in half. So those two combined, and then you add in some of our supplemental taxes that we do have, like a cigarette tax. It's statewide. We get a distribution based off of per capita. And that said too, less people are smoking cigarettes, which is a good thing overall, but that does return just less money into the pool. So really, we have a few revenue sources that have remained either stagnant or they are slightly decreasing. One note of positivity would be, we do see that the electric utility does seem like it's kind of taken a bounce at the end of this, but they did just raise the rates. So that ties in hand. So that's a little disappointing on the front end too, but all the other sources, I would say, thank you, Rona. All the other sources we're not really projecting all too much growth. And that makes it so we have to really account for, what we're currently operating, maintaining our current level of service, while also trying to not operate at a deficit. And that includes personnel, includes keeping up with our police contract. There are a lot of different options. So this kind of ties in to what was provided for the meeting agenda, but also provided when the budget materials were distributed at the front end. Both of those things, one was option A, which is a balanced budget, which includes some pretty severe cuts, which I would, if we have the time with the chair's permission, I think it would behoove us to maybe go through those and really kind of realize that operational day-to-day impact of those cuts. And I actually have an interactive Excel sheet that if we want, we can share it and actually post it live so we can kind of see what it does when we add something back in. But really, in the balanced version of the budget, we're operating in about a $13,595 non-deficit at a positive balance at the end of the year. But when accounting for where, maintaining all of our events and keeping up with all inflationary sources without making any cuts, we were expecting about $483,000 in a deficit. So the document that was just passed out to you shows what that $483,000 is. I thought it would be a really good idea to go through those kind of one at a time. I know it does have a major impact on the events we run, and I'd love to give Mr. Vunich an opportunity, if the chair's permission, to go through these as well. But overall, if we're wanting to operate with a balanced budget, we're gonna have to make some pretty severe cuts to our bottom line. Including, there's just the top item here, personnel. Originally, we were looking, once we got our recommendations and comparing to some other cities, we were wanting to shoot for around a 4% increase with a 2.5% adjustment for COLA, and then the 1.5 for a merit-based. That said, when working those numbers in, we were not able to accommodate the full 4%, so it was reduced in the option A. So that's the first thing included. That affects various accounts. We can kind of show how that impacts the bottom line as well. But this is with the stagnant revenues that we have, we're getting to a point, and I wanted to call this out as well, where police operating in our contract with the police, it makes up 42.55% of our total operating budget. When comparing to other cities of similar size, I mean, not all cities resemble Wildwood in any nature. I think we have a pretty unique mix of rural and suburban, but when looking at other cities that are somewhat comparable, we're typically seeing that number around 30%, a little bit over 30%. So we're around 10% higher. That said, when you look at some of these other cities as well, just for example, one that was included in the report, not the report, but the actual budget materials, was Baldwin. I mean, they are operating, I think it's 32% is the exact amount that they spend on their police budget. At the same time, though, they're bringing in $25 million in operating revenue. So it's a pretty large difference. And I added this in there as well, but it's a good comparison just for maintenance concerns for roads, for instance. I know we're planning at parks, but wanted to note this. We maintain 350 lane miles of roads, which includes snow removal, includes a whole host of different services we have to do to make sure those stay clear and safe. And the same could be said, let's go to Baldwin, it's 121 lane miles of pavement. And their budget's almost twice as much as what the city can spend on our roads. So we are operating extremely efficient when you compare to other cities, when you see the net cost for what we do maintain. Overall, our model works. The problem is right now is that quite frankly, we've added a lot of services, and to maintain them with growing costs all around us, it's come to a point where, quite frankly, we have to make these cuts if we want to keep operating with a positive net balance. So wanted to kind of give an introduction here, but we can go through these as well. Or Mr. Vunich, if you want to add anything too, but I think when we go through these, it might be a good opportunity to kind of add in some sediment. Okay. So first thing that was, has everyone got their documents open? Okay. So first item to look at, personnel. We discussed that briefly, but the difference in between, the 4 and the 2 for all employees would be about $64,311. So overall, if you added that in to our bottom line, that would add up to be if we added that increase in, we would be about $61,000 deficit for fiscal year 2026. So that's just to kind of add in here. We have about $13,595 to wiggle here to be above the deficit line, but I just wanted to kind of make that note. And I have a spreadsheet here that can be shared as well. But the other side, I guess we can kind of go through these one at a time, and then revisit some. For parks, we have service contracts for the portable. Where the cut's coming from here is the portable restroom facilities that we currently have over at All Foster. We have some at Old Pond School. We have them at Bluffview Park, and we have some at the north side of Community Park. The way that we are able to see some cost efficiencies here would be either removing the current portable restrooms or potentially lowering the frequency of cleaning. Lowering the frequency of cleaning could lead to, potentially not having so removing it would be the better option of the two. That said, there is still money available to be able to have both public restrooms at our city events, and to have them at maybe a lesser so amount with the same amount of frequencies at some of our parks that are currently there. So, Joe, do you want to add anything to that specific line item?
Ask a question. I know we're trying to just get through this and then ask questions, but this is worth bringing up, I think.
Yeah.
Nobody wants dirty restrooms at our parks, but nobody wants to look over in the weeds and see somebody doing their business over there either. We have those great, I know Joe is sold on them, those you bring them in on a flatbed, hoist them into place, and the permanent concrete structures. You love them, sound great. Once you buy them, you're done. It seems to me they were in the range of, $150,000 a piece, which would be, I guess, ×4 for the 4 parks that we're talking about. So if we could budget for one every 4 years, then we would, or no, my suggestion in the Admin and Public Works meeting was to buy them out of our surplus and then get rid of that line item of 150 grand a year forever. That seems like a reasonable solution and a good use of our permanent
That's for
surplus
events,
funds.
though.
Yes, what's that?
That's for events though, so you can't.
Well, some of it is, but
Parks to an event.
I don't know, I don't know how much, but still, if it's $157,000, that pays for a restroom. And if it takes us 5 years to get all of them, get all of them in place, we're eventually gonna have, all of our event spaces are gonna have restrooms, like in the Village Green and so on and so forth. So I think we can work ourselves out of this. But I guess I wanted to throw out that we have an option. It would take some expenditure from our surplus, but we're looking for ways to meaningfully apply that surplus, and this would save us money in the long run and be a better solution than we currently have, because nobody likes to look at those bilious green, blue portable.
What's our surplus?
18?
What?
18 million, something like that.
Oh, the reserve.
Yeah, the reserve.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Oh.
It just seems like a very cost-effective
But
way.
we
to
should
use
be
a few bucks.
increasing things right now. That's just my opinion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's worth throwing out there.
Yeah.
2 of the 4 locations, we don't have water, so we can't do permanent restroom
Yeah.
facilities.
But we can do those ones that that are off the, kind of off the grid restrooms.
Yep. We sure could. The concrete ones that basically have the stack that faces south, so the stack gets heated. And the most part is to neutralize the odor of the pit.
It's just an alternative to peeing in the bushes.
Yep, it sure is.
Worse.
And we have it at Glencoe City Park. We've had it since its inception. But we don't have water to Bellevue Park nor Al Foster Trail.
Okay, well, it was worth throwing out there, and I'm kind of trying, I know we have problems. We're not gonna work ourselves out of those unless we increase taxes.
Required to have a restroom at a park?
Not legally, but it,
Because Anniversary Park did not have restrooms for close to 18 years. So I'm kind of the thought, if we need to remove a few dollars from this, I mean, in the overall budget, this is a small amount, but Bluffview Park, how many people go to Bluffview Park? And do we have to provide restrooms in that facility at this time?
we can remove them. It's gonna be an impact.
We gotta cut some more.
Yep, that's kind of where we're at. That's,
And how much does it cost to remove them?
But there's no charge to have them come pick them up. The charge is renting them and then having them clean. So Tom and I first talked about it, was for the most part, we don't have to provide that service. It's a nice service.
We got the pump track and all those kinds, there's a lot of people over there, younger folks, they're just gonna go in the woods.
Bluffview Park is very busy now
Yeah,
with all the Gork riders.
Oh, is it? Okay.
yeah, I just think it's
Because
a,
I've been over there several
Really
times, but
bad
it's been
idea.
about
Usually
8 or 9 months, so.
You'll go in the woods regardless of
Yeah,
whether,
I think.
I know that.
We had
Well, we
the,
can go through some
we
other
took the
stuff.
toilets out of John the Cave Trailhead.
Mhm.
They've been gone for quite some time. I get down there quite frequently. I do on occasion see people using alternative, well, there's a field next door. I'll just leave it at that.
Mhm. Mhm.
But occasionally.
I mean to start a big discussion, guys, but
Yeah, no, I
we need to
think-
be creative by, we can spend a little and save a lot.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, in the big picture, we do have that $18 million surplus that I've been here for 6 years, and we've been talking about the fact that it's a lot more than it should be, and ways to look at auditing, figuring out what we actually need it to be, and then taking the difference and making meaningful applications to different things that we could offset long-term expenses by making short-term investments with extra monies we have, right? But what I was gonna say is, appreciate that bringing that up. That was a great point. For the purposes of this, why don't we go through and let's have Tom go through all these items and then we'll start having, otherwise we'll get stuck on a 20-minute discussion for each line item.
Hesitant
Until
to
next
bring it
month.
up, but it,
Let's just go through each thing and then we'll let him do it and then we'll come in and talk about the things that he wants to talk about after.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and with your permission, Chair, I'd love to, if Mr. Vunich has anything to add to, just want to keep that open. Okay. All right, so the other ones we have maintenance for vehicles in the Parks Department. This was, we looked at the 5-year historical average. This seems pretty consistent with what we've spent in the past. It does what we have currently budgeted in option A. And just a big difference, option A is the budget that was presented, but option B was requested by the Administrative and Public Works Committee. We had a very similar discussion about cuts. And overall, there was a direction similar to what Chair Galani had said here, that, hey, we do have a massive reserve and we don't want to have, like a whiplash system with our residents where they notice, quite a few services are no longer provided in the next fiscal year. So that was something they provided to us. Hey, what was the amount that we need to be at if we wanted to maintain all levels of service? That's where that option B came from, just to make sure we could show that difference. Wanted to add that note in there as well. So maintenance of the vehicle, we did just get a new van. That does help a little bit, still provides for being able to service it. But if a big major issue comes up with one of our vehicles, that would make it a little bit more costly and difficult to do it in that fiscal year. If it ended up happening, we could come back to the council. The maintenance of the building is really more so, the next one is maintenance for the building. It's really all for the Old Pond School, and it's money that's been put away in the past for pest control. There is still some monies budgeted there, not as much as there was previously. And it was nice to have that 4,500 as a contingency, the additional $2,500. Just because, if there's, you don't want pests running around that area. We've got kids that go over to that playground, and we don't really necessarily have too many people utilizing the facility, but just with the amount of people that go over there, it's not the best to have a bunch of pests. This option A also would reduce the Hometown Heroes banners, not being able to purchase the banners. We'd have to reutilize ones that we have or have individuals fund the entirety of it. That doesn't include just buying the banner itself. That would include buying the banner and installation, which would be a very big change to the program. And I wanted to circle that one to have a little bit of more discussion so we can come back. But the other one was for the computer systems. We do still have a slight contingency placing there at $500. That said, we do plan on having, this year was budgeted to replace the devices for our current park staff. So we should be able to take care of the major computer expense, which is typically the one driving the cost, and 500 would still allow for a monitor that gets broken or something that would go down. Special events, this is money that's set aside as a contingency fund, if you will. It does get used quite a bit for some of our city-sponsored events. And quite frankly, this is, pretty decent cut into what we've had in the past. And really, this is going to require us to kind of take a look at our event schedule to see what changes need to be made, whether it be, do we provide free things during the events, or do we charge for them? Do we eliminate them as a whole? Not necessarily there's in budget A, there is still money set aside for events. It's just not to the grand scale that the city has been used to and that our residents have come to expect. So that said, these are events that, some of the pop-ups that we do, some of the smaller events that we're able to put together, kind of when all the, good example, during spring break, we were able to have a homecation, I forget the slang term for it, but a homecation, the vacation at home deal where we had that at Community Park, had a ton of different visitors come out. This also helps fund things, just some of our smaller events that we have, and helps some of our bigger events if needed. That, I think we definitely want to circle back on that one as well, just to have the discussion, part of the event schedule too. Then supplies, there's a decent cut there as well. One portion of this that does somewhat help, that was already kind of incorporated, was the frozen feet. That we would purchase the large jackets that would go with us for frozen feet each year. And we are no longer doing frozen feet. Last year, we had a pretty small amount of people that registered. Typically, we'd see a lot of day of registrations, but the event had kind of shrunk over time. That said, we also had some very severe weather conditions last year where it rendered the trails inhabitable for walking. So that said, that should actually save a good chunk of change here. That On the other flip side of that is that the cost for the t-shirts we provide and all the stuff that we do, I mean, the haunted train ride we just did, we had to get supplies, different decorations to give it the haunted feel. All of those small things, they do add up over time. When you do an event, it's a bunch of people working extremely hard. And this will kind of stretch them a little thinner there, quite a bit thinner, but the frozen feet not being there will actually free up some of those funds because we will not have to make the purchase of the large jackets, which were pretty expensive just given the material and that their jackets are not t-shirts. We wanted to circle that one as well, but then the two big ones too, and I'll just kind of do these in tandem. So for Music on Main, option A, to be clear, option B would still include it. Option A would eliminate May Music on Main concert unless we were able to make enough savings through the hot dogs or making sales for concessions or something like that. That would then allow us to pretty much cover that fourth concert. So May has been the one that we get a little bit of rain. I think it's an open discussion here. It just means one of them. Back to School is by far the most popular event that we have. So I would not recommend, I would love to hear from the department on this, but if we had to choose one, the Department of Administration at least would be pointing towards the May one just because of the attendance, but maybe it's a different approach from the committee, but that's where that cut comes from. The way to make that up would be potentially looking at how can we could potentially with the hot dogs, with the kettle corn, ice cream, those things, maybe we just provide water. I think it does change the nature of the event. And I think it would require further discussion. If we got rid of the May or one of the other ones, June or July, that would allow us to continue offering the same concert level at you providing the hot dogs and the other amenities that they get when they go there. Then going down contractual services for 4350, the major expenditure that's eliminated in option A, which is the proposed budget because for a balanced budget, would be the pool passes for the Ellisville Aquatic Center. So we currently we cover the pool passes for residents that want to, we don't have a pool here in Wildwood. So if folks want to sign up there, they're able to go. We've actually seen quite a few residents sign up and utilize those services. So those residents would see a change in service delivery for.
When you say quite a few, how many is quite a few?
Joe, did you check those figures?
Last night I was asked a question about numbers. There's 40 at Baldwin. I wasn't able to get for Ellisville. I'll have that Monday night for you.
Okay, so we're talking about maybe 100 people or 100 families.
There wasn't a school. You said there was a whole class though that was there for for Baldwin, right? The whole swim team was made up of Wildwood residents.
Besides the pool passes, our residents participate in the swim team. It's the Ellisville Wildwood Gators. 75% of the team is Wildwood residents. So.
So it's a small that, or is this just passes for residents?
Pardon, sir.
So this team, would they, if we eliminated this, would they not be able to participate?
Certainly. They just wouldn't get the subsidized rate.
Yeah.
And we also participate. We usually buy the t-shirts for the team because Ellisville does everything else in terms of the equipment, the management, travel cost, et cetera.
Can I make one comment? That's the only comment I'm gonna make.
Yeah.
We're not gonna raise the taxes of the citizens. I think we need to require them to see that and ponying up some money for the stuff because the taxpayers are paying it. And then you have a deficit coming, the hot dogs, maybe $2 or something, but I'm for not giving all these freebies out because we're talking about
Yeah, we'll have
increasing
to-
taxes. That's.
I know we're eager to jump in and have.
I know, I can't
conversation,
hold
but-
back.
I'm
No,
sorry.
you're good, but I'm saying, there's a lot of, we can have a debate, we can have a conversation on all these things, but I say, let's just get through it first.
I don't think we will.
Zip
I
it.
know, we got it, because we got several pages here.
That's too
And then
much.
we can come back and, and obviously, Tom, we've got a pretty good, we can see here what it says.
Yep.
Just do a quick overview on these things, and then we can circle back and do the discussion
Gotcha.
on some of these things.
I'll make that a little bit quicker here.
Just to what you just said, I think,
I've
as
heard.
we hear all of these things and look at all these things, that's the general mindset we're gonna have to come up with as far as like, the city should spend money on things that affect everybody in the city. And if there's things that just certain people are using or that certain people like to do, they should pay to do it versus the city covering that cost, right? So anyway, like Music on Main or whatever, like the back to school,
So
thousands of people
so
do
you're
that.
clear, the only thing we don't charge for are the concerts.
Right.
And we've talked about that over the years. We'd have to create a system where we basically put up a fence, so we have people coming.
No, not
No, we're not
that.
talking.
I'm saying the pool passes though, like we shouldn't be paying.
She has.
It's not residents and yeah.
Yeah.
I may.
Yeah.
Ellisville for 2024, I don't have them for this year, but it was 191 Wildwood families that had memberships that year, and 39 out of 100 of their swimmers on the swim team are from Wildwood. Just
Right,
FYI.
but how much? I don't wanna get into this too deep. We're getting dragged up. I'm getting dragged in against my own will. But I was just, well, since this one thing though is, you know, 191 families, but once again, whether we subsidize any costs of that pass, they still have the ability to do the pass and pay for it themselves.
Yeah.
So I think they still have the ability through Wildwood setting that up with Ellisville. But, you
They
know,
don't need us.
right,
could
if
buy-
I wanna go join the Y, Wildwood's not paying for my pass over
No.
there.
We used to do that.
No,
Right.
resident rate.
But I think things like that though is,
You're right.
if we have extra money, great, but.
Yeah, I think that's the difference.
Yeah, let's move on. Let's go back to
Come
the,
on.
go all the way through here.
Right, so I'm gonna run through these so we can get to the questions portion and have discussion. Okay.
Yeah, quick overview and then we'll talk.
Yeah, the next one, and we can just say it and then we can get past it, but this one's pretty big. I mean, we're moving Celebrate Wildwood to Village Green next year. There is gonna be some cost savings there in the sense that we're not gonna have to pay the entire bill for electricity costs. We still need to have an electricity source for the vendors, but it won't be as high because we have electricity running through that site. That said, the other side of it, this option A does not have the parade. The parade would not be able to continue if option A was adopted. We can add that back in, but that would be a pretty major change in the event. So just wanted to add that. We can move some other things around, but it
We
would
can
be,
talk about that.
yeah, we'll mark it. So then park maintenance, honestly, could go even a little higher with adding Village Green. That said, we're trying to keep those costs low. I just wanted to point that out. And we will be moving to the flat rate bid process that we look to have in January. That will be identifying all of our parks properties, all of our trail properties to be able to bid it out is a full amount, not necessarily an hourly rate for these folks, but then coming in and saying, well, here's the total square footage, here's each site, you can investigate. And then coming back and having them give us a total amount, which will be reviewed independently by the council and will be held separately from our right-of-way maintenance bids. The same goes
Yeah,
for,
'cause gas is going down.
It's going up.
Oh, pardon me?
So I thought gas was going up.
No, it's going down.
has been decreased. Okay, and then this still does maintain the current farmer's market. It would keep our farm market manager. The idea was to add a little bit of additional funds to help spruce up some of the smaller events we have there, and also accounting for our market manager hasn't made, you know, very many increases to their compensation over the last 15 years, Joe. And then this usually we were able to give, you know, a little bit of funding there to be able to add some things to the event to make it a little bit more interactive, have little, really just promotional stuff that makes the event on a certain weekend different than the one before, so it kind of adds some variety. But it would still maintain a farmer's market, and obviously with the Village Green being constructed, it's very important, the department found it very important to keep that because that's where we're gonna be.
Popular.
And
Very
very
popular.
popular, yes. I think that would be, we'd have a line of folks out the front door. Community garden, it does maintain some funding there. We've had some additional, you know, like work days with them, and we were able to kind of create a little sense of community back there, but we're keeping the funding to maintain the area and really just keep it up. But it's not really anything extra, any bells and whistles, if you will, under option A. Going through here, Pond Athletic Association, this would eliminate the donation of $5,000 to that organization. We've done that for quite a few years at this point. And that would sum it up for parks. We can move on to planning if we want to break them up or we want to go to planning.
I mean,
there's planning, so we can just jump.
Yeah, just keep going through and let's get done with all this part. and then
All right, so maintenance of vehicles, this one, we would be able, it goes from 9,500 to 7,500 is the last page. This would allow for us to really just service the vehicles, but if we have a major breakdown or something along those lines, we will need to bring that to the council just for review. Just because we don't have it budgeted, if we have a breakdown, we need to be able to have a vehicle there. This is more so what we typically anticipate. And the 7,500 traditionally, what we've seen it, vary a little bit, but I think there's still enough there to service. It's just, it's nice to have a little bit of that, contingency, if you will. Training, there is a cut there as well. This would pretty much limit the ability to do an AI training for one of our employees, but one would still be able to go. We'd have to render the other side of that training. And some other supplemental training to the following fiscal year, when we can hopefully start realizing some of the revenue growth from some of our development, so we move it in. There's also special events under planning that helps, throw on some of the events that we have. This one is a little bit tough because we have Route 66 anniversary, 100th anniversary next year, and this was going to help drive a lot of those special events, open houses, things along those lines, making sure that we were able to, accommodate all of those different activities that we plan to do for the centennial for Route 66. So that a little bit particular hit, but travel, typically that's associated with the training, so that was able to see a decrease. No one is the ones that we even looked at are online, so we were able to eliminate that. It's not too big. Abatement consistent with previous years, the 16,000 shows pretty similar to what we've had. I do understand wanting to maybe pick that up a little bit so we'd be able to attack some of the other issues that we've seen. The abatements is really the money we use to be able to correct an issue if the resident won't do it themselves, and then we hopefully pay us back at some time. Then also, this is probably the biggest one here is the contractual. We have a plan for a consultant to take a look at some of our lighting code and also having some monies for some Route 66 items. That saw a pretty significant reduction. That said, we still do have monies put aside in there to pretty much maintain as is. Consultant costs, there's still money set aside, and these monies are spent on when we have particular requests. One example, this year we had electronic message centers come in and be a big part of the discussions pretty much the entire year for planning and zoning, and now it'll be going in front of the full city council. Part of that is, obviously we do have experts in-house, but sometimes when it gets something very peculiar, very specific, as in like electronic message centers and how to regulate them, we would typically rely on a consultant. This is the fund that we would use to do that and assist with planning and zoning council. And it's important to have some money set aside there in order to be able to carry out, there's plenty of things that I think we could end up doing with it, especially with strains on staff, sometimes with heightened permit reviews. Specifically at this time, it helps when we can bring those consultants in. Still does keep some monies there, but does reduce the total amount. And then for commissions, we do have some money set aside for being able to set up events and not events, but having different workshops and be able to provide accommodations while we're here. So we'd have to just be cost conscious and cut back on some of those services as well, which includes like coffee and donuts. That includes it, but I know we went through quite a few, so.
Yeah, so I know we can have some good discussion here, in the interest of how to approach it, so we're not just all over the place. What I was gonna suggest is, well, number one, I think this is an issue that is not gonna be for fiscal year 26 and then go away. Like, we're in a situation where we've gotta take a serious look at what we're spending and how we're spending, and like, this isn't like, how do we cut some costs for next year, cause the year after we'll be fine. And, if we come in here and say, the deficit here, we're looking at 483,000. If we just took 483,000 out of our surplus and kept everything as is, we'll run out of money in like 10 years or whatever, just get down to a dangerous level, So, and the thing is, the costs of all these things are only gonna continue to go up year over year with inflation and other things. So I think we're at a point where we need to look at these things instead of just looking at it for next year. Maybe take a look and see like what things are mission critical that we have to maintain, and what things can we potentially put on the chopping block, and what things can we cut back on? Cause what I'm looking at here in all these different things is option A and option B is pretty much everything's staying at a reduced level in option B, right? And I think when you're making hard decisions when it comes to budgetary purposes, sometimes you just have to take things down to zero versus just cutting back. And so we've done a lot of really good things for our residents for a lot of years and we've been able to provide, but you know, at a certain point, like we have to say, like, we can't continue to do everything we've been doing just at a lesser level. We've got to figure out what are things that, you know, we can get rid of completely, or maybe on some of these things where we've got, you know, oh, well, we've these contingencies in place in case we have to fix the vehicle or whatever it is. Maybe we just set up a miscellaneous emergency fund that's really not in the budget expected to be spent, but has, you know,
But we
50.
move that kind of stuff around all the time.
Right, and so we've got it there to where it's just, if we don't expect to use it, and if we have to for certain emergency purposes, we can. But we don't, right? And then it doesn't get spent, but I'm just saying, I'm looking at this from a macro perspective as far as how do we get this number down to where we're talking about 150 grand a year instead of 500 grand a year, because this problem's only gonna stay there and get worse. And so if we're just making minimal adjustments, we're gonna be in trouble. So that's all I got.
And can I
Councilor
add-
O'Donnell?
Just real quickly, I wanted to bring up the subject because we haven't talked about it in the last couple of years, but we have a lot of parks. We have a lot of parks that the residents really love and enjoy. Other cities have a park tax, if you want to call it that, or some kind of park funding source, as well as maintenance source. And the maintenance cost for our parks is a big chunk of the bill right here. And so I'm wondering, we don't have to do it for 2026, but we need to start figuring out how we can go back to our voters and say, guys, that wonderful park that you get to play in with your kids, we need you to pay something upfront on that
So
annually.
after looking, I just a
So-
note on the stormwater.
I got a comment on that one.
And you're gonna say no on tax increases, I know,
No.
but
What I'm gonna say is,
Let Tom respond and then we'll go to Rambo and you.
I was just gonna mention a quick note and
On here.
wanted to be prepared for that type of statement here tonight, but looking into it, there was a couple items, if that is the direction, there's a few different ways to do it. I mean, the stormwater parks tax is one, and it could produce upwards of anywhere, you know, if you look at the range, it's 0.25 to 0.5% added to tax. So it's the same, it would practically be the same or half, or anywhere between there of our capital improvement sales tax fund. So that would be expected to generate anywhere from, you know, $1 to $3 million, depending on what we put the amount at. So how it's listed in the ballot would be for parks or stormwater or both. That's how you have to mention it. And then you have to give the split in the actual ballot itself. So if you say 50-50 or 75-25, you can do whatever as a council, but you have to list it out in the actual ballot so folks know what they're where the money's going, and you have to keep a separate account, which wouldn't be a problem. The other two items that were reviewed just as part of this process were, I know we did an indefinite postponement on the use tax for digital purchases, online purchases, and there was also, and then there was gross receipts. And I didn't mention this during the revenue discussion, but one component of the revenue discussion is that we had it at 5% for the gas tax fire, and we reduced it down so our residents didn't see a net increase to their tax, to the amount they're paying in their bill from the city's perspective anyway. So right now, when someone pays their gas bill, you'll see a 4.86% charge that reflects that reduction, so reflects the previous amount that was charged. So just wanted to add those little tidbits, if you will. We currently charge a 5% gross receipts. Voters can approve adjustments there as well, but that would tie additional tax to utility, which I know that would be a little bit more dicey. So just wanted to bring up a couple of those avenues. If that was, and we have more information if anybody wants to discuss it, but just to lay a basis.
Okay. Councilman Rambo?
Yeah, Mike is exactly right. We need to do triage now and figure this out, but the problem's not gonna go away, and so we need to set ourselves up for success in the future. Katie's exactly right. The parks and the parks are what people recognize and acknowledge and love about Wildwood. I think it would be a reasonably straightforward sale to say, folks, we don't have a parks tax. We're the only community around here that doesn't. And the same message needs to be delivered on, folks, we also don't, you're always complaining about your taxes and so on and so forth. We have the lowest taxes, you know, in the any of the surrounding communities. We need to get that message out. And I don't like taxes any more than anybody else, but I love living in Wildwood and we get more for our money. And so we need to figure out how to bridge the next few years to get to a you know, more stable revenue sources that help us provide some of the things that we need to provide. And I don't have any problem whatsoever with cutting out the parade, or cutting out music on Main and so on and so forth, and cutting out swim passes. I would support all of those if I could, but I just now did the math. I get like $2 to $5 an hour from Wildwood for my time. $400 a month is not gonna break me whatsoever. And if you add that up times all of the other folks that get it, you're talking about nearly 100K. That's a big chunk of change. I would be happy to, I feel like, I mean, I don't need that money. And I feel like this is kind of a volunteer role. And we should, if we're talking about, you know, cuts here and cuts there, including to staff salaries and stuff, we should be thinking about, you know, cuts to our stipend, because all it does is pay for gas anyway. And so it's worth bringing that up. It's not gonna be popular. It's going to go over like a lead balloon, but I think we should discuss that and maybe even vote.
Councilmember Crayons?
Yeah, I'm not against a park tax, first of all, Katie.
Okay.
But what will concern me right now, and we discussed it last night, we got $10 million we can spend. Plus we'll have our reserve. So we have $10 million. So that's money that's been taxed, and that's money the residents paid in for these services. I'm saying the timing has to be right, because if you're sitting on $10 million and you're gonna tell the public we need to tax you, I think there'll be an issue there. I certainly would have one.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all, because
Yeah.
we could set aside even a couple $100,000 a year to offset some of these park expenditures, which would take us 10 years to spend 2 million, rather than one of the residents to say, we want to tax you more while we're sitting on a surplus that's double what we need. So I got Councilmember Ottenberg and then Councilmember.
So, a little bit off topic, talking about a potential tax proposition to put before the voters, but I think it's nothing to be sorry about. I'm glad you brought that up. But the thing that we need to, I think, remember is that we need to maintain our transparency with the voters. I know that there was some talk floating around here for a while of calling it a parks and stormwater tax in order to better sell that to the voters. If you take a look at the website for the city of Ellisville or any of the other cities that have these types of taxes in place right now, what they've done is spelled out exactly on their website the percentage of tax that's going to stormwater, the percentage of tax that's going to parks. They've either, when they put these before the voters, they've put a separate proposal for stormwater and a separate proposal for parks and spelled out the percentages. Or if they did call it a parks and stormwater tax, what they did in the verbiage, they said parks and stormwater tax, I'll just pick a number here, 0.5% with 0.25% being used for parks, 0.25% being used for stormwater. I think it's very important that we maintain that transparency if that's the decision that's made.
Because the original premise that was brought up initially was for stormwater. It was for erosion, brought it up. Let's call it parks and stormwater because people will like it. So, but we're really gonna use it for stormwater, so. I agree 100%. If you're gonna go, you gotta let people understand exactly what it is or what it's for if you're going to. But going back to what Councilman Krantz said, I think before you go to the taxpayer and say, we need to raise your taxes in a tough environment to generate more revenue so that we can do things. But we're sitting on 19 million and we only need 7. Like, why are we sitting on that much? Like, it doesn't make any sense. We don't need their money right now. Yeah, we can set up a way to take 2, 3, 400,000 of the 10 million extra we have, which would take us 15 years to go through, or 12 years. And then at that point, we can go to them for a tax increase if necessary to offset whatever. But Councilmember McCutcheon?
Yeah, well, a lot of people in Wildwood seem to think that we have a municipal tax. And I don't care how many times you knock on the doors and how many times you explain it, they still think we have a municipal tax. So that would be a good thing for the website. We don't have one of those. And we've been talking about this at council, and I've been an advocate from this since day one. Wildwood funds should be used for Wildwood. Let's stop using it for Highway 109 and 100. I mean, residents have complained about that. Why should we fix that? It doesn't belong to Wildwood. Yes, I know, we drive down it, but again, we're not responsible for state and county roads. And the stipend thing was a huge deal at council. There was a committee, they did all this research, and it was really looked at, and Wildwood is paid way less than any of the other cities, way less. So that would, for whatever that's worth.
I ran for the money.
I didn't even know you got paid when I ran. I'm just saying that was a huge deal. That was a huge
You can have my money, I don't care.
I think the discussion back then was to increase the payment to $800 or something, and the argument was people that can't afford to donate their time would be more likely to run, like a single parent, that kind of thing, and it was voted down. I sympathize with that argument.
But I
Like I
think,
said,
I agree with
we
what
don't
you
need-
said, Councilor Rambo, too, that, I mean, $400 a month or whatever it is, I don't even know what it is, but like, I don't think anybody on council is here for that.
I didn't know you got paid.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, we're 64,000 deficit here on the salaries and payroll, and that includes council getting a 4%
Yes,
increase
it's a
too, isn't it?
gesture.
No, okay,
No.
We
good.
just get.
But I'm
That is
saying-
established by.
But if, what is it?
That's established, like that would have to be.
But I'm saying it's basically $5,000 a year per council member times 16 council members.
Times the mayor gets twice that.
So it's like you're
Let's
talking,
Let's just cut the mayor's salary.
so, but I'm just saying, at the very least, what you could do is just take between the council, the mayor, whatever, and just offset that 64,000. So then whatever the difference is, the council could still get as a stipend. But now you let the staff and everybody that deserves it get paid what
Yes,
should get
That's the
paid,
point.
and we'll take the hit.
Mhm.
Wish they did that again.
So it's like,
Pardon?
it's like.
Wish they did that in Congress.
Yeah.
This up completely.
What's that? Well, if we took it off completely, but I'm saying if we just, at the very least, I don't disagree, we could cut it out completely if we want, but I was saying at the least, cut it enough to offset that 64,000 deficit.
Yeah, it's 76.8 plus the mayor's 10.
Yep, so it's 86.8.
Yeah.
Hey, we're supposed to cut their salaries, not ours.
So you could cut it the 64 and,
We get $100 a month stipend.
give the mayor 5 and give council, 2 or 100 or whatever.
I think we would.
Fanny.
Yeah, go ahead, finish.
So I think and I totally agree, we need to take this, we need to cut it down. I'm not saying that, but I think we need to be really cognizant of what we'll take out. Because, again, we spend money for state roads, we're doing $1 million roundabouts. We just gave away a chapter 100. And so the residents are gonna say, oh, you can do all that, but you're gonna take away events and things that we're used to, and it's our money basically. So I think we have to be really careful how much we take out and what we take out.
But the one thing I'll say to that though is that when residents are gonna say that you're right, but at the end of the day, it's our job to help them understand that it's not your money because we've been spending it. If we're in the red, it's not your money because there's no money there. Like we can't say we've been doing all these things, we have to keep doing them because it's their money. But if we have to make cuts if we don't have it, but I will
think
say.
we have to decide what we're gonna spend it on and what we're not.
I would say my advice on this, and I'm coming to you, Councilmember Trotter, in a second, but I was just gonna say, hearing what we're talking about and what I mentioned from the beginning, and the fact that we know we've got this massive surplus in the reserve, that, like I said, we've been talking about this for 6 years that I've been here, and I know it was discussed prior to that. And Councilmember Bros previously had brought up multiple times for us to take a look at it, and every year when we're having this conversation, we say the same thing, but we've never
used it.
once done exactly that. So I think what we need to do, we're $483,000 off of full scale, right? If we went everything balanced as is, or with everything we wanna keep doing. So I think two things need to happen right out of the gate before we get into the weeds on the details is, A, what is the dollar amount annually moving forward that we're willing to take out of the reserve to offset this $500,000? Is it 250? Like, if we took 300,000 a year for the next 10 years, that's 3 million
Right.
that we would spend. And that would cut our deficit from 500,000 to 200,000. Then out of that 200,000 that's left over that we're in the red, what can we cut permanently? Right, and make adjustments to. So I'm just saying, if we come at it from that approach, I think we can get ourselves to a happy place versus diving into the weeds on line by line each thing. Cause we'll talk about this till we're blue in the face and we'll shave 20 grand.
Yep.
Councilmember,
Yeah,
or
they-
actually I got Councilmember Trotter.
Okay, I'm sorry, Matt.
You said exactly what I was thinking is let's pump the brakes a little bit. Let's not go through this and nickel and dime it. Sure, there needs to be cuts. Let's take buckets out of the reserve where we can to ease into this and then create a narrative and, honest narrative of where we need money, whether it's from taxes or however we get it, or what we need to cut. So we can, create the reality that this is where we're going based on revenue and surplus reserve, whatever we have. But ease into it. There's no knee jerk, like we need to cut this. I think you can balance this over a 3-year period using the reserve that we have in place to kind of soften the blow. And in that time, though, we need to be very strategic in delivering a message to the residents on what the future will look like. So we're not gonna flip a tax proposal for, the next voting cycle, but we can ease into it.
Councilmember Rainbow?
And then I did like what Councilmember Rottenberg said about being very discreetly clear on if a tax is proposed, what it is and how it's allocated.
Yeah, I thought there were some legalities, but you would know better than I.
I don't know anything
But
about.
yeah, I agree.
Municipal legal,
I agree with Scott completely, but my points were, we're low tax environment and residents don't know that. We need to get that message out, but I would suggest, as Matt did, that we be strategic. If we can buy things that will save us money, like the restrooms that might be a silly example, might be a stupid idea. But if we spend $100K and we put a restroom down, then we don't have people peeing in the weeds and people
It's a
see that.
long-term solution.
Yeah,
Expense.
right, and that is a very easy way to apply the excess funds that we have to save short-term pain and get us on a better, that's kind of my point.
Yeah.
So,
just to be clear, we're not contributing to the reserve.
But it's invested, so it's
Yeah.
growing.
It is.
So we're,
But out of the budget, nothing is.
Not with what's presented. I mean, what will be returned is about 13,595 as what was presented in option A. But option B would show that deficit, which would not be.
So I think that's a small number, but we
Yeah.
probably should end any contributions to the reserve.
but let me ask you this real quick, and then I got you, Vicky. What annually, over the past year, let's talk specifically, or the past 3 years, what has been our annual return on the,
It's been about, well, in the height of it, it was almost 5% in some cases, but it's gone down to about 3.5%.
3.5% of the
Yeah.
19 to 20
Yeah, but
million?
like right now, it's like 3.5.
So anyway, so even if we spent 5%, we would only be reducing it by 1.5% per year, which would be insignificant. And go ahead.
Okay, just a couple of things. Really, it was, we're looking at this and trying to reduce when we have this huge reserve in place. To me, it's mind-boggling to me to think we have these reserves we haven't touched, and we're going to say we're going to reduce or not give increases in salary at the level we should be. One of the things that I've noticed in the time I've been involved in council is that we have a core group of people that are very committed to the city. And the last thing we want to do is lose them by not giving them appropriate increases. And they work many hours over what the normal workday is. And I think most of you have noticed that they seem to be here all the time doing something. So I think, you know, my thought is whatever we can do to say, we look at the reserves and try and budget it appropriately
Yeah.
for what we need to meet the needs makes much more sense than for us saying, okay, do we want to take $64,000 away from
No.
the
Your
Your
salary?
interest on the reserve.
Right, that's what I'm
Right,
saying
yes,
is we should,
We have to.
Real quick, the
should go
reserve,
there.
oh, sorry, not, and
Yeah.
not, I agree with that point you just mentioned there. I think that from at least the department's perspective, I would, as a city administrator, that would be the first thing to try to add back into this pie. The one thing I wanted to make quick a note of is that the interest income is added in each year as part of our revenue model. So the
Okay.
interest we're projecting, because we are only able to invest in securities, really.
So we're getting
treasury
paid
bonds.
out and then it goes right.
it
into-
goes,
It
all
goes-
right, okay, so it's part of the deficit.
Right now, we're accounting for
But-
what we will earn in
What I'm
twenty-six.
saying is what we should do
It's
is
account-
what you've said, I've heard this from everybody here has pretty much said the same thing,
Right.
more or less, but. So let's get to this point then is obviously, I think we need to look at option B as far as. Not making drastic cuts across the board, but using the reserve to offset the shortfall. And moving forward, but with that being said, doesn't mean we go option B on every single thing. So we don't have to pick one or the other for everything, right? We can go in and say, for instance, for option B on the personnel salary, let's give all the city staff their full increase. And then if it's agreeable, then we can look at offsetting that 64,000 with the council and the mayor, which that buys us 64K back right there. If we, I'm not saying we have to do that, but if we did that. And then we can look at some of these other things and say, okay, well, let's whittle it down on some levels and let's get that 483 down to 350. And then we take the 350 and take it out of the reserve, and now we're fully balanced and we're in a good place. And once again, if you took 350K out of the reserve for the next 3 or 10 years, that's $3.5 million. That's not even that's a third of what we know that's there in excess today. So that's just my opinion.
Well, that's a good plan.
And a quick note on that too, that's for this document that was passed out, that's the idea here too, is, and especially when we get into the full council work session and taking any feedback, I know we're talking about tonight, we'll look into the legality. I know there will be probably a code change for the salary adjust. If there's folks that, you know, are supportive of council not pulling a compensation, then I think it does. So that's one side of it, could be done quickly if needed. That said, that was the idea, is have this document, almost go through this here, but also as a full council. And if we want, we can pull up other items as well, you know, more specific accounts to show what was kept. One thing I just had top of mind, we do have a legislative consultant that's $31,000 a year. I know we utilize that individual to try to haven't gotten our, the 250 to 500 that we shooting for. That was something I was kind of on the fence about. I wanted to make sure I noted it because it is about
And
$31,000.
that might be something to where moving forward, instead of just having that every year. Like
Maybe
there's
it's
hot, maybe when there's years where there's a hot topic that's going to the state legislator that we're interested in, maybe we do per diem consultant fee for that year, knowing that, hey, they're gonna be discussing this thing that could be a big deal for us. Versus just having it as an ongoing thing all the time.
So what's the lawyer's budget in litigation?
Currently, there's $160,000 budgeted for all attorney fees.
So we giving the lawyer a raise?
No.
Okay,
We haven't given the lawyer a raise in their firm a raise for the last like 4 years.
all right.
It's remained at 160. We actually did remove the litigation contingency account, which is typically held. It was kind of strange. It was kind of a holdover, but was kept there for instances where the city were to be sued for a item that's not covered by our general liability insurance, which typically would be something that's dealt in planning and zoning or board of adjustment. We haven't had, those can pop up, but that expenditure could easily be passed into, the council could be brought up into the discussion if something came up like that.
We don't have any litigation going on now, do we?
There's a few things, but it's all covered under our,
Okay.
I could catch you up.
That's.
It's not, there's the one big case and then there's a few like very small things that are being handled by insurance.
Chair.
Councilman Rock.
So I think if, Galani, if, I understand what you were suggesting is to go with, start off with option B. Then look for savings, going down and taking a look at the items individually.
If we can get that 480 down to like 325 or
So,
350.
I agree with that totally. I guess my suggestion might be then to take a look at each page and use sort of the 80-20 rule. In other words, look at the biggest potential savings on each page, which usually there's like 2 or 3 that are at least somewhere in the neighborhood of 25,000 to 30,000.
Mhm.
Take a look at those first, rather than get hung up on each item that only has a potential
Well,
savings
how
of
about-
maybe like 2,000.
I don't disagree at all, and let me ask you this, and I think there seemed to be relative agreement here, but regarding the council and mayor salary, is everybody here okay with making?
You may have to go back to the voters,
Yeah.
because we.
That what,
You- yeah.
the
it
voters
had to-
passed
The
that.
voters passed that.
Oh, for the salaries?
It might be locked in.
Yeah.
It doesn't change.
Here's the other thing, to run, people have to buy signs. And, there are people, well, you're in a different category, but it helped people that didn't have, that wanted to be part of government and wanted to run, and that was sort of an incentive as well to get people to run.
I just.
I remember that argument. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
You're
I don't
advocating
care,
for
but-
the increase in salaries though, which has nothing to do with city council running.
Well, no, I was saying if we were gonna
Reduce
propose to
first.
offset that.
Got it,
64.
got it.
But I was just saying that
Salary,
money
but you
wasn't
can't do that
incentive.
without a vote.
Argument was used at one time.
No, and it was mostly for campaign purposes, if that's what I remember, I think.
Right,
We voted on the
but I could care less because I just,
council.
I
vote.
pay all that
Public-
taxes.
The public voted on it.
I don't see
We
it
used to
anyway.
get 240, we used to get 200 per meeting.
100.
Yes,
We
it was
changed it
per
to
meeting.
400
Yes.
a month.
That is correct.
As you went to one meeting.
We used to get 100 a meeting.
Yes, and if like you didn't show, like there was 2 meetings a month, and if you didn't show up to one, you didn't get
You
paid for
didn't
that
get
one.
paid. Right,
Quite frankly, it
exactly.
was kind of a pain.
But it was 200 per
Check
meeting.
that.
Now,
When I started, it was $100,
We only-
and you had to be at the meeting to get paid.
I don't remember. All I'm saying is,
So,
That's back in two
if
thousand.
we
Look
can,
into
so
it.
how about we do this to start off? Let's figure out what our number we're looking for. So we're 483 in the hole. What is a number that we're comfortable proposing to take out of the reserve? Are we good with 350?
I have
Are
three.
we good with 300?
I'm good
So,
with
so
it.
this is my personal opinion, and I went through and line item this out, and I came out with $175,000 reduction. So that's 307 from the reserve.
That sounds great to me. Where is it coming from?
You want me to go through each
Well,
one?
Could we,
I mean,
yeah, could
Do we
we-
want to go through each one, or is there a possibility that we come up with,
So you're saying 175,000 in savings?
Off the
reducing, so with the balance between B and A, reducing 175,000 off the current proposed.
B.
Yeah, and then, so what we would be deficited is 307, which would come from,
The reserve.
Yeah.
Which I think 3 to 350 out of the reserve is more than amenable.
yeah,
I think.
Yes.
I mean, I did some gross cuts here, but I didn't know if we wanted to go through line by line.
We
or
could, and-
or if we can come up with a aggregate, I don't know what that percentage comes out to be.
oh, you mean reducing all of them at the same percentage?
And not look at it individually, but more, in globe.
So if we have to
yeah.
reduce it by,
You're getting somewhat
3%.
close to 50% reductions in expenses here, along with taking 50% of the budget out of the.
But I think for instance here, like you're
Yeah.
looking at the concerts, I mean, I think for sure we should stop giving away free things. Like, we don't need to give hot dogs and T-shirts to people.
I got so much Wildwood swag over the 6
Yeah,
years
but
of
I
my.
mean, people can come and we're
service.
paying for the band and all the other stuff, but any food they should pay for, any other drinks they should pay for. And then getting rid of May's concert, I don't think would kill anybody either.
no.
But that's 25
May
grand right
concert.
there.
And I think those are soft savings. I don't think people are gonna really actually,
No,
they're not gonna be like, oh my God, I had to buy a hot dog here.
Kids are still.
I don't
in
get a
school
free hot
today.
dog, I'm not
Yeah.
coming.
I mean, I don't think people are coming because they're getting a free hot dog or a free T-shirt.
That's
but-
what makes your Wildwood unique from other
Hmm.
concerts in town.
The freebies are over. That's all I,
It just gets expensive quickly.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
My understanding is option B is still a dramatic reduction from what we would, if we did the same things that we did this year, it still represents a reduction.
It does, but that's because we had a crazy year when it comes to snow removal. So that said, we do not anticipate that kind of level of snow removal every
Okay, so if we take something along the order of what Matt suggests and just come up with a number, you could probably reapply it and rejigger this and come up with something that works without cutting anything. And the only things that we owe you is a philosophy, like, okay, there's 200 families that are buying a swim pass. Get rid of that sort of thing and just be judicious about the cut.
But on the
and-
salaries, keep the salary.
Yeah, and pay the guy.
And my numbers didn't touch, I didn't look at the 64,000 difference in salaries, so.
Yeah,
I'm cool.
where can you go with
voting on
option
that.
B and make cuts to get to like 325?
So that said, could we maybe get, that would be helpful if we could get that
Amount.
number and we could.
What if we just made it a round number like 325 instead of 307?
But
Authorize it.
Tom, are you asking for us to go line item by line item and tell you where?
No, he's gonna
We
do
can
that.
do that. I can
He's the
also put
expert.
that together.
So, yeah, I think I'd like that.
We're basically we're telling him that you can use 325 out of the reserve
Yeah.
to get to your
I'll
plan
make
B
that motion.
number.
That's a solution.
Which
make
budget are we using, A or
325.
B?
We're gonna use B, which is the full.
Yeah.
We're gonna give him 325 towards that 483 deficit. And he's gonna cut the difference to
he's gonna
get to 320.
take care of the staff with that money.
I thought A
Second
was a
it.
balanced budget, so we're not going with the
A's
balance.
balanced with major cuts, 500,000 in cuts.
A is balanced and B is a deficit.
That's why I was asking, what are,
So B is the full amount, 500 grand in the hole. We're gonna give him 325 of that 500 grand out of the
We're
reserve.
adding
And
money.
he's gotta cut the other 160
270.
grand difference.
So practically it's saying like what this is, it's using option B as the starting point instead of option A and then going from there saying, hey, we're going to bring back into the fold about 350, but then $158 and $601, those are cuts that gotta go. Like it's like setting an acceptable limit of that amount, just can't happen,
Right.
can't go over this amount, which we will maximize the use of that.
And get rid of the things that are just
fluff.
fluff.
And then we
Exactly.
can stay in our budget next year.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing I just want to bring up too, and this is just something to keep on the radar, and it was part of the discussion, and the police originally had an increase scheduled for a higher amount. It was at 5%, which would have really kicked us. It really would have. We were working from a whole nother perspective, and then the police did come back. They reduced their increase from 5% to 3%, which was, quite frankly, the contract does allow them to go up to 5%. So just from the city's perspective, we do appreciate that because it did help. That said, with just in general, there was a increase to different collective bargaining agreements that took place. We should be anticipating, and what I did with the finance team was we looked at, okay, we're being told that 5% would have happened this year, but we were very much in favor of not having that, and they were helpful. We can't expect that going forward. That said, if revenues stay relatively consistent, the one trend that I found alarming long-term was that by 2031, we would be spending over 50% of operating on police services, just that alone. So
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love the police. But has that ever been audited
Contract?
with the contract? Have we ever had somebody look at that independently that can tell us that?
Not to my knowledge, but I will say I've looked at, and this has been, I will say to the police's credit, I've looked at, our neighboring municipalities and I've taken a look at some of the cities that kind of resemble Wildwood, kind of rural suburban balance. Truly, it seems like we're on par with other cities. We're not getting charged any more than what typically is done, because when you account for the cost per officer,
In the crime and the level of police work involved, I don't think ours is as high as. these others.
that's the discussion to have too. We have not had that. From my knowledge, not recent.
So it's more than an audit, it's a evaluation of the need versus.
I just
Deployment.
think maybe we should see what's involved and just for the public interest. Are we getting a fair price on it? I know
Well,
it's
I'm
not
sure
a
the
popular position to take.
The
But-
majority of it is, I'm sure, on
But I-
that salary.
I'm not saying it's not, but I'd
Yeah.
like to have
You're
it
asking somebody
looked
to.
at.
Well, it's a good
Yeah.
point because then we know where we're gonna be at. and how we can
Absolutely.
Build everything.
It keeps
surrounding it.
building
Yeah,
up.
Yeah, it would be good to
Keep
do.
building.
So we're
It's
doing,
a separate subject though.
so we're gonna then do, you need a motion and to do that?
Katie
Okay.
made it.
Made a
So do,
And real
I
quick
already made the
to
motion.
kind of tie that in, because I know we did get a couple, firm points here. Just to include in that 350. We're looking at from the perspective of, hey, we're not gonna be doing the free stuff at the events and stuff like that. That agreed that that's
Yeah.
not. So then
Yeah.
the May concert, everyone seemed comfortable there. I know there was one at the parade. I almost wanted a little, some direction on the parade too. I know it was a big item. It's 10,000. If we don't, that we can work.
It's such community engagement. with
Yeah,
the
I,
parade.
yeah.
So what are the expenses for the parade from Wildwood's
I mean,
perspective?
it's
It's around $10,000.
yeah, so that's good.
What's that
So what do we
for?
get for that?
A parade.
It's for overtime with
25,
police,
20.
like juggling Jeff that comes in. There's, this year we had Fred Bird and
Primarily the golf carts.
golf carts too. Yeah, it's like $6,000.
I didn't have a golf cart.
No?
What was the
Never have.
attendance
I've never had
at
a
the
golf
parade
cart
this
once.
last year? Do we have any way of gauging that? Because
We're
I noticed
betting on-
all along Old Manchester, it was pretty empty. Whereas
Or
in
what
past
about,
years, it's been
what
pretty
about
crowded.
this too? Like honestly, like, I don't think council needs golf carts. Like they can walk. It's literally, we're driving the golf cart as slow as you would walk anyway.
Yeah, it's easier to hand out
I mean,
candy.
you're
if you're
literally-
What I was getting at is the parade.
But you're not in a golf cart anyway.
The parade's important, but I don't know that we need to spend is there a way we can have the parade without spending 10,000?
I think, I mean, we could, one thing to keep in mind too, golf carts, that's a pretty major expense of it. And tying that in, we're having the event at Village Green next year. So that said, it would, if we include, the golf carts are the majority of the expense. I
Could
mean,
we
it-
get a farmer with a tractor and a large,
Bale of hay, we did that one year.
not.
Do it like high
hay,
school
but
used to do with homecoming. You're
Yeah,
right, you're right.
with a-
And all the council goes on one hayride or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think
I
too,
think
it's a
motion, this is a minor point, but I don't think getting rid of the parade, nixing it for the
No.
You
motion.
just readjust it.
Right.
What if you started the parade at the roundabout down at Taylor and Old Manchester, came up
line up
and took
everybody.
Main all the way down to.
That's well, you could in theory, and this would, I would need some advisement from the police, but if that were to occur, you would have to close Taylor. And then you would have to keep that roundabout open there and the light, you would just restrict the left and right coming from 100. You'd restrict from the roundabout. You could in theory close Taylor, but Deerbergs would not be happy about that. We would get some serious clawback.
Well, it wouldn't close anything more than what's already closed.
Well, and yeah, that's, there's true,
I'm
but you
saying,
can get in.
instead of starting at Schnucks, coming all the way down, going up Taylor, then going Main, I'm saying just start here, eliminate the Schnucks to the roundabout, start at the roundabout, go up to Main and come over to end at City Hall, which is be at Village Green, right?
Yeah.
So it's just a shorter distance of the parade logistically, but it's all in the heart of downtown going to
You
Village
still
Green.
have to line up everybody.
Yeah.
The line is
And
usually, that's that we had
You got
just,
two big parking lots, Deerbergs or Schnucks, that's it.
yeah, and that
Well, and
lineup just this year, we have, and each year, we have at Schnucks, we start at that front entrance, but it actually stretches back all the way around and goes almost tails outwards towards the
It look-
electro credit savings.
it
It's
looked
really the staging.
Less people standing in that section this year than we've had before.
That is,
Oh.
long old Manchester was a little bit more sparse for my
Yeah.
opinion, but
There were
it
a
seemed
lot.
like everybody was kind of towards the Taylor Road side.
Everybody's in the Taylor Road. Councilman Rambo, and then I got you. Scott.
Yeah, we don't have to redesign the parade, but I think that Village Green gives us an opportunity to reset and say, hey, this is the new way that we celebrate Wildwood. May not have a parade. Maybe council members can just walk around the crowd in Village Green and pass out candy that way or something. But I think we can save a lot of money on the parade if we only have council members that have a walking issue. We get them a cart and everybody else, walks and it's a shorter parade. I think
If we
there's.
build Main Street, we could
Yeah, right,
Yes.
right, yeah, but
Councilor Rotberg?
Yeah, I have a question specifically on item 40-350, which is contractual services for parks. So we were talking about eliminating city funding for resident pool passes at the Ellisville Aquatic Center, in which I think, Director Boone, correct me if I'm wrong, you said 191 families participate in that. And that is saving us $20,000. So the 40,000 that's left, does that still include, aren't we also subsidizing passes to the Baldwin pool?
It would eliminate both, but there.
Is that the right line item though, or was it?
Yeah, I can't find it.
Yeah, I don't-
It's 40-350.
It's on second page.
So what is 40-262?
40-350, it pays for inflatable, inflatables that we get from some of our Music on Main events. It also pays for,
We only have inflatables at the back to school party and Celebrate Wildwood. So again, if you have, Mr. Roblowski said, the Wildwood Celebration Commission's been asked by the county police to forego the parade. Because they have serious safety concerns.
we'll go to the parade.
Forego the parade because on Taylor Road, Sergeant Grace mentioned he couldn't see where the kids were. They were so close to his car.
Yeah.
There was residents complaining from the villages that got stuck and couldn't get out and they missed their doctor's appointment. I got an
Department's
email.
position has been, let's forego the parade until Main Street is completed. We can control a well-designed, safe parade once Main Street's completed. We can start, we can finish, and never have to block Taylor Road or any particular subdivision that way. A
Great
lot of
idea.
this has been discussed. And Mr. Boblowski and the volunteers you've chosen to manage this are already working on the parade. So all I would ask is give them a chance
Cool.
and let them come to you. It was in the memo that came to you in the October packet. City council. So
Yeah,
So can I just get confirmation then on the item 40-350? So you're including not just Ellisville, but the elimination of the passes at Baldwin as well?
yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
it's another 40 or so.
all right, so the Councilmember Dodwell, so the motion on the floor is to allocate $350,000 out of the reserve fund towards,
Not second.
Yeah,
and your second council. So $350,000 out of the reserve fund to go towards the $483,000 deficit. With you looking for ways to cut the difference to get to that $350,000.
The 350?
You said 350. I think.
It was
He
320.
originally said 325, then he said I'm fine with 350 if you guys.
350 seems like it's a fudge
You
factor.
said 350?
I'm voting on, I'm
Where's the
moving for
25
three
come out?
fifty.
350,
All right, now second
Going
that.
once, going twice.
350. You got the directive. All right. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Well, he didn't say 350.
He did.
I did, I asked.
I just asked you, you said no.
No, I said that because it was 325. I asked because I heard 350 and I
Okay.
wanted to make sure the number.
All right, I didn't hear you, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, and I know, it kind of made a face like I didn't know.
I'm a yes vote.
I
And I
Yeah.
think any of our trail
I'll-
swag stuff we should get rid of, or at least offer them to pay for it. I don't know how much that would cut. but
Hold
I
on one
would
second.
think
We were in the
any
middle
of
of the vote, so we got
Finish the vote.
all in favor said aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Okay, so motion passes. Councilmember Ottenberg.
So just a question, if you take a look at the second item on the budget here, which is 40-262 regarding the portable restrooms, the costs that are there, is some part of that cost, does it
MyGov.
deal with vandalism to these porta potties?
Yes, that is correct too. We definitely had some spikes. Joe can speak to it more than I can, but
It does not, we provide a portable water closet. Wanted us to pay, and we said, no, that's not a cost we're going to incur. That's the risk of you doing business. That's why we pulled the restroom facilities out of John Elway. Trailhead. So no, we don't.
The reason I brought that up is because I know from recent experience, when we had the Tour de Wildwood, we had the two porta potties down on the cave trailhead. And they were brought in, I think, at the night previous, and by the following morning, Melvin mentioned to me that the toilet paper in the dispenser had been stolen out of one of them
We
already.
can't have one down there.
Yeah,
And the solution the police department offered was to put a street light out there with a camera. And that was a solution that was almost like $50,000.
sure.
It's like, no,
Yeah.
we'll get rid of them.
Yeah.
You can go down to the city of Chesterfield and use their permanent facilities
I
that
agree.
that they're fixing.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, good. So you've got your directive and got what you need.
Yeah, and that's, so the plan will be to work that in and then that said, I mean, I know it'll be confusing, but I just wanted to say it here. So when we go to council, there will be the original, I don't want to get rid of any of the original stuff submitted. So it's the original piece, but we will have this almost, do we want to call it like option C or something like that from planning and parks?
I would say the recommended.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Recommend. You say option C, we're gonna start all
I-
over.
I know,
Say recommended.
Recommendation based on the options presented.
Yeah,
So
you
it's-
presented option A and B, and this is a recommendation of the committee
Yeah.
for the budget. That's what we're.
Another quick question, and this may not be the right place, but what is the exact forum in which everyone will discuss long-term, my stupid example is the buy a couple of those portable toilet kind of thing. When are we going to discuss expenditures from our surplus, from our reserve that will benefit us on the bottom line, short term, but in the future?
We can have that discussion now. I don't have the exact number of how much it costs, so I have.
You know, I mean, there are lots of things other than those stupid toilets. That was just my example.
No, I
I'm
get you, but I-
suggesting that we should have that discussion openly for each item, and maybe we spend 5 million in the next 3 years, but we save 15 over the next 20, and we provide amenities for our residents that they would otherwise miss. It's a very smart thing to do, and I don't know where we would do it.
Councilor Schreider.
So you bring up a good point, and I don't know that it's the place for this meeting
Right.
to come to the solution, but for the grander budget, I think the reserve needs to be broken down into buckets. A bucket for just mitigating expenses, a bucket for investment, meaning something you're gonna buy that's gonna pay off in the long run.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the whatever the ultimate reserve needs to be, but this needs to be segregated into pieces. Because you're gonna have an expense component that's gonna just eat away and give you nothing, other than.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Cause I think
Rectifying a
separate
deficit.
from the budget, you could say, like, for instance, if we're allocating 350K a year for the next, let's just say 10 years, right? I'm not saying we're doing it for this year, but I'm just saying if you said 5 years, that's 1.75 million over the next 5 years that we would spend out of the reserve towards expenses.
Just, yeah,
But then we could have a separate conversation, I think, which would be separate from the budget, but a council strategic session on how many million do we want to take out of the reserve to do what Councilman Rambo's talking about and making some purchases on the front end that would save us long term. And then how much needs to stay in the reserve, but that would be more of a strategic planning session.
Yeah,
inside
it
of
would
what-
actually be an ad hoc, some sort of a subcommittee. Matt's a great one. Vicky is participating in one already. There are folks here and in A and PW that would be
Yeah.
great in that group, but we need to do it because the exact methodology that you just suggested, we've talked about since I've been on
I know.
council and
Well,
before.
Even when
we
Councilor
Everybody ever
we
pulls the
went
trigger?
through this
Doing it.
4 years ago. And we put together a top priorities list
Uh-huh.
and rated each of them.
But that was a strategic
Yeah.
plan, not having anything to do with the reserve.
I know, but we could go through that same kind of
Right.
process
Yeah.
again,
Yeah,
is what I'm saying.
Yeah, like I said, Councilmember Brost was advocating for that from the time I came on council 6 years ago. And we kept saying we were gonna do it, but we never actually did it.
So how do we move that ball forward? How do we charge Tom with?
We
doing the
set
right
that
thing?
up.
Well, I think we
Can we
need to,
build?
Already,
what
I
was
did.
done?
I think we need to get this year's budget done.
Yeah,
And then I think in January
Yeah,
and
maybe in the
February
winter.
of next year, we need to have not our normal council meeting, but we need to have a
strategic analysis of
strategic
the reserve.
planning meeting of some sort, which is what we did 5 years ago. And
For
we
the
start
reserve specifically.
With respect to this reserve,
for the
right?
reserves, so that we can understand how we can use them, everybody can get on the same page. And
That sounds like a motion and I will second it.
Okay,
Okay,
thank
take
you.
that motion to make that recommendation to council.
Discussion?
All in
In January.
favor?
Can we have discussion first?
Needs to be in
What
January,
discussion?
February, because we need to get it.
Just
done.
some of the things to think about. 3.2 million for Main Street to complete that. And we got stormwater erosion, but we're getting $300,000 now. That's gonna help out. These are and the city hall needs to be addressed too. So those are things.
But that's all things we could
Yeah,
talk
yeah.
about in that session.
Saying.
Yeah.
Let's say, let's
Saying
say,
those are
this
the
extra
things.
fun.
All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstention? All right.
Alright.
All right, so we're done with that. Let's move on to
We've done enough damage.
the
So
next item, which is city recreation schedule for 26. And is that, Director Vudic, do you need to talk about that, or is that just a notification?
Typically, the city council committee, planning and parks, endorses it before it proceeds to city council. I request postponement.
No, these are requesting postponements.
All right.
Good. Done there. Next item is the Village Green opening ceremony.
I think that requires a motion.
I move that we postpone the recreation schedule discussion.
I'll second.
We got a first, second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? All right. Next item is the Village Green opening ceremony, Director Vudic.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, would you like to hold an opening ceremony for Village Green when we get to that point?
In the spring.
In the
I-
spring.
Spring. Because I was thinking about that, depending on the weather, it could all get all messed up if it was like rainy or
After the
snowy
holidays.
or, yeah.
Do it right, do it in the spring.
Yeah,
End of April,
do it in May instead of the concert.
end of April, first week of May. Look at the schedule and see what we got.
All right, do we need a motion for that?
I make the said motion, end of April,
Motion,
first week in May.
second,
You stole my motion. I didn't steal yours.
Second the motion.
second motion, Councilor Crans, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention?
Arm wrestle.
All right, planning matters, we got the Veterans Memorial Wall.
Okay. Well, as you're aware, the city has been making a concerted effort to increase programs and recognition for our veterans, which includes smaller things that are less noticeable, like the overhaul of the veterans page on the website, to things that are more visible, like Hometown Heroes, which are on display right now, and celebrations like the one we have coming up for Veterans Day on November 6th. That is just more inclusive of veterans. So this led to, a more permanent display conversation. And when the department researched it, we came back with, this is maybe a little out of budget to do some kind of big memorial, something at one of the parks. And so in the process of researching it, came up with kind of the Hall of Honor concept that we've discussed a few times in this committee. And the committee was in favor of moving forward with this, especially because it didn't necessarily limit the possibility of doing a more formal memorial in a park later, but it would be more cost effective, also highly visible, doing some kind of signage on the wall that is on the hallway that goes down here. If you happen to go by there, I did note in the staff report that there was an area marked off in that hallway, and that is for the sign that I will be showing you in a minute. We discussed kind of doing a donor wall, something like this, and you're presented with a bunch of images. So these costs varied from like $5,000 to like $15,000 or over, sometimes 30, depending on the materials and such. These can be, if the city decided to do it kind of like a donor wall sponsorship, kind of like the Hometown Heroes, we could have veterans actually, or veterans families buy a little tile with their dedicated name on it. Well, we do have 40 to 50 veterans names right now that we can start off the recognition with. So that being said, the city's been working with Graphics and came up with this sign here that you can kind of see. You can see it better in your packet. I also blew up just the sign to kind of put and I put it on the wall in the hallway. Just to, I'm a visual person, so I kind of needed to see the size of it and how much of the hallway it would be taken up. So this sign here, overall, the sign panels are approximately 10 feet wide and 4 feet in height. The department has approximately 50 veterans. This will have 154 spaces, so it leaves quite a bit of room for growth. And given that those are panels, it can be added on to, like if we wanted to do another, we needed to do additional panels on either side, we could, but this would probably hold us out for a little while. The top, I think it's about 4.5-inch lettering that says Veterans Wall of Honor. We can change that to read whatever we like. But overall, the sign height would be less than 5 feet, leaving approximately 2 feet-ish above it, in which we could do the military seals or just leave it blank. And if we wanted to, we could do the seals alongside. The overall estimated cost of the sign itself with installation is $7,200. So it was less than I was anticipating. But of course, nothing is ever easy, right? So we have the whole acoustic panel issue to deal with in the hallway. And so I've discussed it with Painter, also with a gentleman that I think they're actually the company that put in the acoustic panels in City Hall. And so that being said, those panels can't be painted. They have cloth over them, and so you can't paint that without losing the sound dampening quality of it. And so he had made the suggestion of taking down those panels and replacing them with a smooth surface panel that can be painted any color that we want. And so that would give us kind of the larger sign. If you look at the sign itself in the hallway there, it kind of gets lost along those panels. There's a total of 9 panels. And so what both him and the professional painter that I spoke with suggested was not painting the area below, but just replacing 5 of those panels so that the sign itself is about 3 of the acoustic panels wide. And so they suggested doing 5 out of the 9, so it would give us some room on either side, which would make the overall composition of the sign look bigger. And with the smooth surface, it would kind of be an extension of the sign. And so it wouldn't get quite so lost on the walls. And so that being said, so he recommended, the original recommendation was to do the whole wall or do the whole hallway. Well, if we're going with such a dark blue, that could present a challenge in itself because it might make that hallway super dark.
So is this the only color?
No, we can go any color. And honestly, I don't like the teal. I would go with more of like a navy blue, more of a military blue. It was just what he sent it over in. And so you can see here, it's the sign component itself.
Like what I was getting ready
Does it
to
have
ask.
to go in the hallway? We paid good money for the sound panels. We already have, if you're at a council meeting, there's people down here in the hallway after they don't get what they want, come out and discuss things out here in the hallway. Is there any reason we can't put it out here in this huge atrium that we have?
On that
So-
back wall.
Sure. Well, a couple of things. If we replace the panels, the panels would still be there, and the sign is designed to be on French cleats, so it holds it away from the wall, so you would still have the effectiveness of the sound panels. It would just be the cost of replacing them.
You can add on to
But what I,
Councilor, I got Councilor Rambo.
Okay,
Yeah, I think
that was my question.
we discussed this before and there's too much art.
We do
Too
have a
much
lot of events.
changeable. Yeah, this is a valuable, useful space for us. That hallway seems reasonable to dedicate it. I was going to suggest a couple things. Something that would make it look nicer and more like a memorial wall than just a hallway that's got some stuff that nobody notices. Have some little lights that come out, gooseneck or something like that, that shine down on the blue to mitigate the concern of it being darker in there. We can also look at LEDs in the ceiling lights and just make it bright, rather than kind of dingy. But my real suggestion was going to be like every arena, especially the old crappy ones, you go in them and they have hanging fabric
With that
that
flag.
yeah, right, that does the job of acoustic dampening that we were counting on the walls to do. And so if we can incorporate that, we can, you know, because otherwise this thing is gonna make it echoey in there and we just spent a lot of money on.
So that's the thing is the sound panels, if we replace them with the painted panels, they're still acoustic panels.
Oh, okay, so it's still
Yeah,
acoustic.
it's just replacing the fabric acoustic panels with painted acoustic panels.
Oh, good.
Which
Okay,
would
okay, so-
actually increase the overall display size.
It's gonna be a hard surface in there, so it's gonna be, it might be a little bit echoier, but it sounds like it's not enough to make a
It's
difference.
gonna sit off of the wall, so it'll be a 1/4 inch off of the wall, and the sign itself is only 10 by 4.
Have you thought about the
So-
lighting suggestion that I mentioned?
Yes, well, the concern with it being dark would be if we painted the whole hallway that dark color.
I'm just
that-
thinking it draws your eye. right?
Sure.
It draws people's eye and it makes it more like a memorial, because we're trying to cheap out on Veterans Memorial.
Sorry, guys, I gotta jump out. I gotta take my son to soccer practice because my wife's in Bridgeton with my daughter in a game.
Okay.
See ya.
All right,
Busted out on you guys. So
So long.
Councilmember McCutcheon, who's the vice chair, will finish up the meeting for you guys. and
Aye.
Thanks.
I'll be with you in spirit.
Uh-huh.
All right. Take it easy. Don't do anything I wouldn't. do.
yeah, so
Oh.
it sounds like you've covered all the bases with that anyway.
Right, well, it's a solution with keeping it in there, still keeping the acoustic paneling. And then it also increases the overall size of the sign. One of the gentlemen I was working with actually kind of threw the sign up on the wall. And so it leaves the white wall here, but it
Okay.
allows space on either side, which makes the sign seem more substantial. And it also gives room for if we wanted to do the military seals along the side,
Mhm.
or if we needed to expand it at a later point, it gives us some room to work with there. You know, and so,
I'm just looking for a something three-dimensional, and the lights seemed like a good place to start. I really wanted to not just fade into okay, this is the hallway, it's kind of blue over here, I don't know what this is, you know.
well, there are options with doing that. You know, I mean, there's all kinds of options as far as adding things to the sign.
And then what color goes on to each of these diamonds here?
So that's also a choice that we can make. They have it shown on kind of like a blue on blue here, but they're just slightly different, and the actual little tiles are different thicknesses, so they stand off and kind of give it a textured kind of
And
feel
the
to it.
tile is where the person's name is
Yes,
listed?
they're 4 by 4 inch tiles, and that's,
Okay.
it would have like just their name and maybe rank, maybe we'll see how much, you know, room
It'd be
is.
nice name, rank,
How
and
much-
service.
How much for somebody to purchase one?
Well, we haven't discussed that yet, and I think
Oh.
it depends greatly on,
So you don't know how much it cost?
right, so the sign itself is $7,200 installed, and that's taking into account installing it on sound panels.
Okay.
And then.
How much are the sound panels?
So the sound panels, I got estimates, they were included in the memo that start off with 0 of them at $0 and go up to both walls, which was over $10,000. What the department would recommend is just doing the 5 panels, because I think that if we did the whole wall in the blue panels again, the sign, again, the size, it's 3 panels long out of 9 panels. I think that this will increase the overall size of it and kind of look like an extension of the sign. And so with 5 panels, the total cost with the sign comes to $11,522. But the city again is planning to apply for the humanities grant. And if that happens, and if the city gets the full grant, it's a 50% match. And so the overall sign with the panels included, and I reached out to the humanities grant organization, and they said that we can include the cost of like the panels, but they won't pay for it. Like the sign, they will pay for, but so therefore they will contribute to that. And so overall, if we went for a larger grant, would be $5,761 with the panels included. So it'd be 50% of the cost. Again, they don't necessarily have to award you the entirety of what you're asking for. But that is potentially how much. And so that would be the department's recommendation as far as how many panels. So 5 panels with the sign would be just under $6,000 for with everything installed.
So the back wall here doesn't have any sound panels on it.
This over here?
No.
Uh-huh.
No, it
Yeah,
doesn't.
so it would be more cost effective if we use this wall, and when anybody comes in the door, they would see it automatically. Versus having to go down, not everybody's gonna go down this hallway.
That is very true, and that is something that we could definitely take into consideration. I think the only thing that I would caution is that, like right now, we have our kids coloring contests out there. We have, we installed these art things on both walls to display, the various different things that
But
we
you
do
can
for
display
events.
those in the
Yeah, you
hallway
could
there
put, you
too.
could put those in here. We put like those kinds of things, paintings and stuff in here. We've done that before.
That is definitely something that. we
I
could
mean, it would be less
consider.
costly because we wouldn't have to replace the panels, and the panels are perfectly good. So why are we gonna replace them? If there's not an issue. I think it's a great idea, Melanie. I'm just looking at cost.
Oh, no, absolutely. It was just, I was gonna say, we use the lobby for a lot of events, and I think that having a memorial there would limit our use of, like we have the award ceremony for plein air and things like that. And so that would be my only
Just a
caution.
suggestion. I-
Sure,
listen.
absolutely, absolutely.
Does anybody else have any comments?
I
So,
tend
so
to
my,
agree with you.
my only comment on this is, this is one of the budget items that we've tasked, Thomas to figure out. So if we're voting on this, we're then,
This is gonna definitely be considered when incorporating it back in.
Yeah.
Right, and so that was the other thing.
Does it have to be done this year or can it be
so
done?
I would put a pause. With my recommendation.
So it's, what's going on? What's the other issue?
There was a line item within the budget that we are gonna be looking now to restore with the supplement, if you will, from the committee. That was just our base program, which is our Hometown Heroes banner. We purchase those every year. We make them for the individual that reaches out to us, and that covers the operational expenditures tied to that. That could be, something we discuss is incorporating back in as part of the directive from tonight. Further discussion with the team is gonna be warranted. That said, this would be in addition to that for that program.
Oh,
So I would make a motion to great work, and I think everything looks great, but I think we need to pause given the budgetary analysis that we're doing.
I would agree with you on
Is that a motion?
A motion, yes.
we're gonna keep the banners, right? Or are you gonna discontinue that?
If you would like to give us some direction on that tonight, that can be, we could use that as our guiding tool when working it.
I would like to
We
keep
just
the,
had a motion on the floor.
okay, I'm
What
sorry.
was the second? I'm sorry.
Or discuss-
Mr. Trotter, your motion is to postpone this item until a later date.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? No.
So can we talk about the banners for a second?
Sure.
So that could be removed from the budget.
As part of when we are cutting down at the floorboards, that was part.
So that could upset some veterans. I know one in particular that was proud that his banner's in front of Larry's. I told him I had to fight for that spot. But if we could keep that in, I would,
The idea was, and that, well, if we could get a motion to, put heightened consideration upon that program. I think it's been a great program. I think it's well run. I think the veterans really.
I'll make that motion
Okay.
What motion are you making?
to keep the $7,000 in the budget for the banners.
For just the banners, not the panels?
No, just the
No,
banners.
banners.
it's the program itself, incorporate, what I think you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Kranz, but when doing the review, where we're trying to get the 483 down to 350, the goal will be there to incorporate and put emphasis on retaining that program.
Correct.
Do I have a second? 80 seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes. Mr. Vunich.
Thank you, Mel. Madam Chair and members of the committee, I just wanted to provide a brief update on the subject relating to utility test vehicles and golf carts. The department identified at the last meeting in September that there are a number of other experts that need to review this. We are in the process of preparing that information for them, and we'll hopefully have to you on November 18th responses from that group of 6. equally important, the department has done some initial research and there seems to be a trend toward not authorizing utility task vehicles, the UTVs on public streets. But there is an inclination amongst many of the communities to consider golf carts. I included legislation that is in discussion now in the city of St. Louis to allow golf carts on public streets as well as in Forest Park. So tonight it's just a brief update. I hope to have a better report and much more information for your consideration. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Yeah, just one question, Director Vunich. Would we be potentially considering, if we are going to consider you allowing the use of golf carts on city streets here, would that also mean that we're considering allowing them on the shared use paths throughout the city?
It's really a discussion point. The city of St. Louis is prohibiting them on sidewalks and trails, at least under their proposed legislation, but on streets. And we also prohibit almost all types of motorized or electric vehicles on our sidewalk system because they're dedicated to pedestrians. We do allow them on the multiple use trails. But yeah, that's an accommodation because e-bikes are a little bit of a different kind of thing. So again, we'll come back with some options for you to consider. I think from a pedestrian standpoint, and mixing in things that go regardless of speed, but have a width that's almost accommodating, that limits the ability for people on the sidewalk or trail has to be considered.
Anything else? Any comments? So the next item is recent developmental trends within the city of Wildwood and fee for authorization. Is that you, Mr. Vunich?
Well, typically we just ask if there's any questions on any of the items that have been identified. I would note as of September, we have collected almost $31,000 through our zoning authorization fee.
And now we want to go to Parks Matters. And the first one is Village Green Phase 1 update.
Thank you again. Madam Chair and members of the committee, as you can see, there's been, substantial progress made at Village Green Phase 1. Obviously, we're getting very close to the conclusion now, at least I hope we are. In the report, I would note that your department has developed a list of items that remain. I've been able to strike through at least 7 of those based upon the current progress of the project. Mr. Lee and I did have a setback recently. We received from Andy Dobb, general contractor for Vine Shop Production, that he was having difficulty obtaining the park furniture. There is a 6 to 8 month lead time. He had yet to order.
Oh, my goodness.
We're a little bit baffled how that happened. What we are looking at is there is a company in the United States that offers a similar type, somewhat contemporary. And they claim they can have it in 6 to 8 weeks. So we are considering some options in that regard. But that's the downside. The upside is, if you haven't seen it in the daylight, I think it's really, it's the place you all hoped and directed the city staff to create. So hopefully when it's all said and done, you'll be satisfied.
What's the price difference, do you know?
Actually, we think they might be less expensive because of the tariffs.
Equally sturdy. Like durability is the thing. I mean, the style a little bit different.
The charge I gave to Ken Keitel, who's been helping Tom and I with the project, is to find something that's comparable in aesthetics, but also we want something that'll last to stand the test of time. And he's had success with this furniture in other parts around the metropolitan area. So that's why I brought it back to us.
Okay, good.
So I suspect in November, I'll have some options, unless Mr. Dobbs been able to work a miracle, and I've asked him to try.
Is this the appropriate time to ask about the cabin and if everything's out of the way and we're gonna save $5,000 because the wheels are greased or whatever?
So Charette Creek Excavating is doing two projects for the city, the trash enclosure down at Wildwood Avenue, as well as the S and Log cabin reassembly. I've charged Mr.
727.
Mr. McDonald, Charette Creek Excavating, to get started on the trash enclosure. And that will, I'll keep him busy for a few weeks. In a few weeks, I think we'll have clear access to the cabin site, which means we'll receive a $5,000 additional deduct, which means the cabin cost will now be around $283,000. He seems satisfied with that. He has just asked that we proceed forward with the contract so as he can start ordering the materials and get them into the process.
And the cabin will be ready when we have our grand opening of the park.
He thinks, although it's not, it's going to be more weather dependent.
Sure.
He still believes he can do it in an abbreviated timeframe, somewhere around 12 weeks or so.
Thank you.
Ms. Ripito, Village Green Phase 2 fundraising efforts.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. So by now you're pretty familiar with this topic of conversation as far as the fundraising goes, so I will skip all the background on it. The group has been meeting regularly and it's truly a great group to work with. And thus far, we have received $18,000 in sponsorship for equipment, and Unlimited Play is anticipating another check for $10,000, so we should be up to $28,000 fairly soon here. The group most recently met October 8th and discussed current and future fundraising efforts. And one of the members of the group works for the Rocket School District and has said that they're interested in hosting fundraising events. There's another that mentioned that a restaurant might be interested, as well as one of our local businesses who actually reached out to me today to see if they could borrow our poster for their event. And yeah, so it's very exciting. Things are definitely happening. They also discussed the city's efforts thus far, and since then, I don't know if you've noticed, but it's up on the city's website on the news flash, which then also takes you to the story map. As far as the story map updates, the sponsors are now on there. So when you click on the individual pieces of equipment, it says at the bottom sponsored by, and then there's also a section at the bottom for sponsors. So we're working on recognition. We discussed other ways of, formally recognizing our sponsors, and intend to do social media, thank you for your sponsorship, which will also let people know that, that this opportunity is available in a less obnoxious way than, hey, sponsor me. So that's kind of it. We're also working on getting a list of in-kind donations, like potentially, plants or concrete and stuff like that. So Unlimited Play is going to get back to us with that. And additionally, one of the members is creating social media posts for us, which is very helpful since Paula is no longer working on that. And the group also discussed signage. It's been a hot topic of conversation, but is also faced with the reality of signage costs money that is not budgeted into the park's budget. And so therefore, we don't want the cost of the signage to exceed the cost of the donations and thus make it moot. So that conversation is kind of on pause, and Unlimited Play is working on getting back to us with the costs associated with various different kinds of signage. But that is kind of on pause for now. But the group does have realistic expectations as far as the signage is concerned. And that is all I have on my list for updates. We don't need any action on this. This was just to kind of get you up to speed with where they're at. And the group will meet again in November to discuss where we're at then and future events and such. We've also discussed doing a potential event on site, but it's getting into cooler weather, and so I don't know exactly how that's going to work. But Unlimited Play will come out and actually mark where all the equipment is and put up signs of that show the piece of equipment and where it's going to be, so people actually have a realistic idea of what the playground's going to look like and kind of bring some excitement. And we were talking about maybe doing it with the Village Green opening or something like that, but that might be on pause as we get into cooler weather. We'll see.
Does anybody have any questions for Melanie?
Yeah, I'm excited about this. I don't know exactly what the timeline is to get really started, and do we have a time for completion? Well, those are my first two questions, but I had other questions.
We have great hopes always.
Okay.
So engineering is happening now. We hope to have that done by the beginning of the year and I would defer to that.
Summer 2026 is the goal.
Sometime in the summer, like maybe the end of summer,
The
maybe.
grant process says June of 2026. Probably need an extension to that, but. still
By the end of next summer.
hopeful. Yeah,
Okay.
we, given the process, the single source contract, so there's not all the delays through the bidding process and et cetera now. So once we get the design and engineering plans done and Betty endorses them and council approves them, we can get started.
So we have the, you discussed limbing up, raising the canopy of the trees
It's all
between.
done.
Is that all done? See, I haven't been over there in a couple weeks and, so they must have jumped right on it. And, is there any other clearing to be done? Cause we got the bat guideline concerns through the winter.
The trees that have been retained are trees I hope we can integrate into the playground because they're nice trees.
Great, great. Okay.
The intent of the shift in the design of the playground location was to save the trees. But yeah, like I say, Omni Tree Service, I think, did a wonderful job. This Rivosky comes through every day. I hope you found it to be a nice, it actually looks like part of the park now.
Great. So if we walk over there, we're gonna be able to see the trees that hopefully will be there when the park is, when the playground's completed. Okay, that's great news. And you like it?
Planting.
Looks good?
Yeah, it looks
Yeah.
great.
Alright.
I mean, if you went 3 weeks ago, it looks totally
Was there
different
two,
now.
probably 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Mr. Vunich, Wildwood recreation programming, is that something you want to address or is that just information?
Just any questions on the last two items relative to the programming we do and then the facilities and reservations and expenditures?
Does anybody have any miscellaneous? Yes.
I'm not sure if it really fits in with this, so if it doesn't, let me know, but I know we brought this up last night, briefly. And that is, I'm seeing more and more people on the shared use paths, on motor scooters, on
Yep.
motorbikes. And I know, he was kind enough last night to give us a little bit of an update as to how the, Wildwood Police are addressing that. Now, I wondered maybe we could ask our officer that's here with us tonight, just for, quick 60 seconds on how your
Got
team
something in
is
his
addressing
pocket, I'm
those
pretty
things.
sure.
Oh, yeah. I can pull it out. The department, previously Wildwood ordinances and kind of made up handouts that we can give to the public. So officers do have these. We have a small stack of them. So when we get phone calls and are able to find the kids or whoever's riding e-bike, or not the e-bikes, but the scooters and mini bikes and whatnot, that we can address that, we can hand that to them, say, hey, look, here's what the city requires and doesn't allow. You can address this to your parents. Sometimes, depending on the individual circumstance, those children their parents are also contacted and say, hey, your kids can't have this here, they can't have it here, these are the requirements. So you as a parent need to be responsible and make sure that they're following that. Otherwise, if need be, the first time could be a warning, the second time, if we need to issue a violation ticket and confiscate your scooter, that's a possibility. So we have
Thank you.
a leniency on kind of how things are enforced on that, so.
Thank you. Appreciate the police they had requested those, some printouts and it was a great idea. Seems like it's helping a little bit there too. And thing is, it actually, it does a great job at tying in that document. It looks like a ticket. It's not a ticket, but it looks like one. It's very similar. It's on postcard material. It looks very official and you read through it, you kind of see a narrative of what our code states, and the second component of it on the back page explains how this is for any parents that might have their child riding electric scooters. It can be considered and interpreted as child endangerment if your child does something silly with a product that you bought them. So that's really the picture that gets painted with these handouts. Just a friendly reminder to our friends online.
Anybody, any other comments before we adjourn? Not hearing any, may I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Second,
I'll second it.
all those in favor, say aye. Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of the night.
Thank you, Vice Chair.